Imagine you're flying over one of the most beautiful places on Earth. Snow-capped mountains stretching forever, endless forests, frozen rivers sparkling under the midnight sun. But beneath this breathtaking beauty hides one of America's darkest and deadliest secrets. For decades, more than 20,000 people have simply vanished inside a region known as the Alaska Triangle. Planes disappear mid-flight, hikers step off the trail, and are never seen again. No wreckage, no bodies, no answers. Some blame the brutal wilderness. Others speak of UFOs, ancient curses, and creatures that should not exist. Tonight, you're about to hear a terrifying true story that blurs the line between reality and nightmare. A story based on real events that still haunts the frozen north of Alaska. Turn off your lights, lock your doors, and whatever you do, don't listen to the silence. Because once the Alaska Triangle takes you, it never lets you go. My name is Alex Harper. I was a private pilot with over 8,000 flight hours. In the summer of 2025, I was hired to fly a small Cessna 206 from Anchorage to a remote fishing lodge near Juneau. My passengers were a young couple, Mark and Sarah Thompson, on their honeymoon, and their friend, Lisa. The weather was perfect when we took off. Clear skies, light winds. Sarah was laughing in the back seat. She's saying, "This is going to be the most beautiful trip of our lives." We were flying right through the heart of the Alaska Triangle when everything changed. At first, it was just a strange feeling, like invisible eyes were watching us from below. Then, the instruments started acting weird. The compass began spinning slowly. GPS signal flickered on and off. I tried to joke, must be the strong magnetic fields up here. But then, the sky turned against us. Within seconds, thick black fog rolled in from nowhere. Not normal fog. This was dark, oily, almost alive. Visibility dropped to zero. I climbed to get above it, but the fog rose with us. "Alex, what's happening?" Mark asked, fear creeping into his voice. Before I could answer, the plane shuddered violently, as if something massive had grabbed the tail and yanked it downward. The engine screamed. We dropped over 1,000 feet in seconds. I fought the controls with everything I had. "Hang on, we're hitting turbulence." But it wasn't turbulence. Through the side window, I saw it. Just for a split second, a huge, dark shape moving alongside our plane. It had no wings, or maybe too many. Sarah screamed. Lisa started crying hysterically. Then the radio died. Complete static. Even the emergency frequency was gone. The plane began losing power, even though the engine was still running. It felt like something was sucking the life out of it. I looked at the altimeter. We were descending fast. Below us, the forest looked wrong. The trees were unnaturally tall, twisted, reaching up like fingers ready to grab us. "Prepare for emergency landing," I shouted. We broke through the fog suddenly. The ground rushed toward us. I spotted a small clearing near a frozen river and aimed for it. The wheels slammed into the snow. The plane skidded, spun violently, and finally stopped just inches from the tree line. For a moment, there was complete silence. We were alive. Mark hugged Sarah. Lisa was trembling. I quickly checked. No serious injuries, just shock and terror. I switched on the emergency beacon. Nothing. It was dead. Phones? No signal. "We'll be okay," I told them. "Search teams will find us soon. This kind of thing happens in Alaska." But deep down, I knew we were in serious trouble. Night fell fast. Alaskan summer nights are short, but that night felt like it would never end. Around 2 a.m., we heard the first sound, a low, guttural growl coming from deep inside the trees. It wasn't a bear. It wasn't a wolf. It was something much bigger, much older. Then came the footsteps, heavy, slow, crunching through the snow. We locked ourselves inside the plane. I gripped the flare gun, our only weapon. Sarah whispered, "Do you think it's what we saw in the sky?" None of us dared answer. At 3:17 a.m., the plane started rocking gently, as if something was pushing it from the outside. Mark shone the flashlight out the window. Nothing. Then Lisa screamed. Right on the glass, inches from her face, was a handprint. But not human. The fingers were impossibly long, ending in sharp claws, and it was still steaming in the freezing cold. We didn't sleep that night. When morning came, grey and bitter cold, we decided to walk toward the lodge, about 12 miles away. The forest was deathly quiet. No birds, no wind, only our footsteps. After 2 hours, we found something that made my stomach drop. Another Cessna, same model as ours, half buried in snow. The tail number was faded, but I recognized it. It belonged to a pilot named Alan Foster, who had disappeared in 2013. Inside the cockpit, we found his logbook. The last entry, written in shaky handwriting, read, "They're not from here. They take you when you're alone. Don't trust the silence." We left the wreck and kept walking. By afternoon, we realized we were completely lost. The compass was still spinning wildly. Every direction looked identical. Then Sarah suddenly stopped. "Guys, do you hear that?" A child's laughter, sweet and innocent, echoing from deep in the woods. Desperate, we followed the sound. It led us to an old, abandoned cabin in a small clearing. Windows broken, door hanging off its hinges. Inside, the walls were covered with hundreds of scratched names and dates. The most recent name was from just last month. Below all the names, someone had carved one terrifying sentence. "The triangle doesn't let you leave." We decided to spend the night inside the cabin. That was our biggest mistake. At midnight, the child's laughter returned, but this time it was right outside the door. Then the heavy footsteps started circling the cabin. Mark grabbed a broken chair leg as a weapon. The door slowly creaked open by itself. In the pale moonlight, we saw the silhouette. It was tall, far too tall, thin arms hanging almost to the ground, eyes glowing faint green. It didn't walk in, it just stood there, watching us. Lisa screamed. The creature tilted its head, almost curiously. Then its voice slithered into our minds. Cold, ancient, and motionless. "You should not have come here." I raised the flare gun and fired straight at it. The bright flare lit up the entire clearing. For one horrifying second, we saw it clearly. Skin like rough bark, impossibly long fingers, and a mouth that opened far too wide. It let out a shriek that still echoes in my nightmares and vanished into the trees. We ran. We ran blindly for hours, tripping over roots, branches tearing at our clothes, blood streaming down our faces. The forest itself seemed alive, reaching for us. At some point, we got separated in the darkness. I was alone. I screamed their names until my throat was raw. Then I heard Sarah scream. One long, blood-curdling scream that was suddenly cut off. Silence returned. I kept running until I collapsed beside a frozen river. That's when I saw them. Bright, pulsing orbs of light, dancing above the treetops. One of them slowly descended toward me. I felt my body lifting off the ground, weightless, almost peaceful. The last thing I remember is a cold voice whispering inside my head, "Welcome to the Triangle." When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed in Anchorage. 3 days had passed. They told me I was found wandering on a highway, 40 miles from the crash site, alone. There was no sign of Mark, Sarah, or Lisa, ever. The plane was never recovered. Search teams found nothing, not even footprints. Officially, the case is listed as missing, presumed lost in wilderness. But I know the truth. The Alaska Triangle took them. And sometimes, late at night, I still hear that child laughing in the dark, or feel those long, cold fingers brushing against my window. If you ever fly over Alaska, keep your eyes on the instruments, and whatever you do,